Hello and welcome to Unveiling Mystery. I am your host, Mercedes, and I thank you so much for tuning in with us here on Unveiling Mystery on the WEBB Radio Network. We are so thankful to have you as listeners. Tonight, I have an awesome guest. Her name is Kellie Fitzgerald. Kellie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. And thank you for being on our show tonight. And I just want to say I really appreciate this. You are an amazing author. Not only are you an author, but you've had your own podcast, or you've been on several podcasts or, shows like this. And you're an intuitive healer, which is another thing we have in common. So can you tell us a little bit about, I can tell as much as I know, but why don't you go ahead and you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into some great conversation after you do that.
Okay. I have been intuitive my entire life. I never really fit in with, like, I'd say human kids, but I fit in wonderfully with the animal kingdom. So
Yay!
I went through a whole series of, storms come through, blow birds out of their nests. We raise them and let them go, all that kind of stuff. But I realized that people had buried a lot of stuff, especially when I became a teenager. I was like, oh, I know why you're upset. I know why that person's angry. And I would just know. And it took me a long time to have the courage to say, hey, wait a minute, I think I can help you figure this out.
Wow.
But I had a really dysfunctional childhood. I tell people they created the term dysfunctional family to describe my family. But, I did that, and it was not fun, and it was not pleasant, and it was abusive and neglectful and all that stuff. I had a daughter when I was a teenager. Her father was incredibly abusive, tried to kill me on a regular basis. I got away from that and realized somewhere along the line between running away from it, literally in the middle of the night, I escaped in the middle of the night. Went halfway across the country to San Francisco and met people there that were like, why are you not teaching this stuff? You survived all of this. Why are you not helping other people? And it had never occurred to me. So that's really when I started. I would use things that I had been through to kind of help other people make a roadmap. I've always done animal rescue. I still do. I have a nonprofit, Chiricahua Humane Society. I have, written a bunch of books. The very first book is about to be re-released. That's kind of where we are. I've kind of made a journey out of my own healing, and hopefully I've helped a lot of other people along the way. That's what I want to do.
That's okay, so those are some key things that I didn't know. I do have something in common with you on this. A lot of things is like my very first marriage sounds very similar, where I took off and left and, took the 1-year-old baby and, left quick. And that was a very, very, very abusive relationship. Horrible. So that's interesting. Not a lot of people have a similar story to me on that one. And I thought that's good. I'm over it now.
Right.
But I do find that's interesting because I think it took me till later, the last 15 years before I could actually want to help people with that. So I love that was something that was already coming into your life prior to that. And that's very important. So, listeners out there, if you are a person that has been in an abusive relationship, like obviously Kellie and I both have at certain times, this is a person that you can actually reach out to, and as we progress with our interview here, you'll they'll be able to understand a little bit more about what we're talking about. So have you been working with people for 20 years on this, or has it been more on and off different times? What is the situation on that?
It's really been off and on because of some of my gifts that I have. I ended up with a lot of people who called me kind of weird, stay away from her, that's a weird person. And so I sort of shoved it back down. It's like it would come out because I couldn't hold it anymore. And then I would kind of rein it back in. And it really, though I've done this for a very long time, I started in 1986.
Okay.
I became a certified life coach before people knew what that was. I did counseling. I've done a whole bunch of stuff through the years. But it really, I was always sort of, okay, well, I'm going to not hand out these business cards. I'm going to hand out these that are a real business, because that's what people around me were saying. That's not a real business. And it really, once a very lengthy, that I thought was a really good marriage, once that ended, I was like, call me weird, will you? I'll show you. And then I kind of went out full bore, and I've done, national TV spots, and I've done a lot of, a whole bunch of radio interviews and that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, I don't care what people think anymore. I'm trying to help a certain group of people. If that's not you, then fine, I'm not your person, It took me a very long time to get there, though. The last 5 years, I've sort of like, I reached the point where I really don't care what anyone else thinks. And that's really freeing.
Yeah, that is. And, I understand that because, everyone, we kind of go through the life journey that sometimes, I know, like myself, I've been so many different things and done so many things, so many different. So the weird part, yes, totally get that. My favorite cap I always wear, not tonight, says, I'm not weird, I'm gifted. I assumed you're not weird, but gifted.
Right.
So, and I totally am with you on the feeling free enough to say I am good with just trying to help a certain group of people, because sometimes that's really the group, like the word of mouth.
Right.
Probably right. Like people, like myself, where people will call because somebody else referred them.
Yep.
That's kind of how it works, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So the animal thing now, the Chiricahua Humane Society, that's yours? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's mine. It's honestly because everyone was coming to me with, here, heal this, here, make this live, here, take this. And I finally got to the point where it was either I do a nonprofit or I stop doing it. And my heart is too attached to animals to not try and help them. So I made my 501c3 in 2019, I believe it was. I think it was approved in 2020. But and I've been working with that ever since, and it's definitely a heart project. I've had people tell me no one in their right mind would do what you do. Well, probably not, but it's okay. It's what I do. I do have plans eventually to do another nonprofit that will assist hungry people, particularly in this area. In living where I live, I've realized that there is a great many people within a 10-mile radius that don't have enough to eat. So I'm working on putting that nonprofit together as well, hopefully this year. Hopefully.
Okay, so I actually met you in Wilcox, Arizona, through the radio station Wilcox Radio. That's what my family was a part of for quite a long time. So that's where we actually met. And so the Chiricahua National Monument and the Chiricahua Mountains are so incredible. And that's your actual home, right? Your area, or do you live kind of more in town, close to town?
No, the Chiricahua Mountains are in my backyard.
Wow.
I'm within a mile of the actual mountains. So technically they tell me I'm in the foothills. So yeah. But
oh gosh, you're so lucky.
and I have enough acres so that I can do animal rescue. I have a rescue horse, rescue tortoises like you do. It's just ridiculous, and it never stops. They never stop going. So it's very healing, I find, for the land as well, to put love back into the area. It's just, and I think you and I have talked about this before. I've also done paranormal research stuff. And when I first set foot on the land, it was crying. Yeah. I heard a woman just wailing like the worst pain. And so I can see spirit walking around, and they weren't happy, So I did a lot of work on healing the land. And I think because animal rescue is so much a love effort, no one gets into that, without loving animals. You have to really love them. And I think that has played a part in healing the land as well.
I totally agree, and that's definitely what I know. When we talked about you coming on, I really wanted to discuss that aspect of what you do, to learn more about what it is that you do, and because I've got the upcoming documentary about our land, and so I'm totally with you on all of this. Now, what I'd like to know is, so when you saw this woman, did you see her in a period clothing, or do you think she was more of a modern day spirit?
She was, I have been told by other spirits, she was an Apache woman. And she was, where my house is now, I've been told by historians who know such things, that there was actually a pond here, which makes sense if you ever see my place. It's dry now, but when it rains, yep, there's pond there. But it was a known camping site as they would move from the Chiricahuas over to the Dragoons. Right. And they would stop here. And there was a horrific slaughter, just terrible, terrible things that white men came in and said, we want this land and you're going to be dead or gone. So I think a lot of that in the area, my neighborhood, was still hanging out. There were a lot of people talking about how the people who lived here were really angry and they were really, at each other's throats. And I'm like, well, this is why I can fix this, So I started doing that. And it really took a long time to get the land right. But, it took years, but it's much, much, much better now.
Can you tell us, well, I know the Native American tribes that were there and the main one that was there. Could you talk a little bit about what that history is right there?
Well, when this part of Arizona was actually Mexico, the Chiricahua Apache lived here, and they would routinely, raid Mexican villages and steal their livestock. And that's kind of what they were known for doing. And sometimes, Mexican outlaws would hang out with the Apache and they would kind of hide them, and everything was like, okay, we won't tell them you did this if you don't tell them we did that. And that's the way it was for a long time. And even though they would fight, it was relatively peaceful. It's kind of like frenemies. But when the first white settlers came in, everything changed. There were a couple of families that came in going, all right, we know you live here first. We're going to work with you. And those people never got raided. Their livestock was never stolen and all this kind of stuff. But especially when the railroad started wanting the land.
Exactly.
There was a big, huge slaughter after slaughter after slaughter. I'm actually working on a feature film script for that. But it's really horrific. And a lot of the time, the stories that we hear, that I heard growing up in Texas, the Indians were the bad guys. Yeah. But they were not the bad guys. They were pushed to the limit And then they started fighting back. And that's really what happened in this particular valley. And then once it became the United States, that was a whole other layer of people coming in and pointing their finger saying, you're a savage. And, you know, there are many, many, many stories about different Apache being hung or taken to jail for things they didn't do. They were kind of a scapegoat a lot of the time. And that kind of stuff really, really damages the land.
Exactly. And this was, like, if people drive through that area, you'll see Cochise Stronghold. So Cochise, and you know, there's a huge amount of history on him, but that's you know where we're talking about. The Chiricahuas, the strong. People that are listening might recognize this area from the movie Tombstone, because that's not too far. And actually, even in the city of Wilcox, you know, they have it where they know that people came into that town. They'll do reenactments there, right? So, I mean, it's kind of, that's the area that we're discussing, right, that we're talking about right now. And so, you know, I think what you're saying, you know, what I find interesting about the differences as we try to, I've been here 7 years on this land, and we have, you know, similar things that have occurred here. But the one thing that we had different here, as the time came to where I was finally finding out the truth, was we had a lot of religious stuff, similar to religious, the priests. There is a lot of stuff going on that apparently in history there are records of it, but you don't really hear about it. But and it ended up, a lot of the curse here ended up being not only with the Native Americans or the Hispanic, or, you know, there's so many mixtures, but there ended up being this other type of blood curse. So I think what's interesting out there, it's very, where you're at, I mean, it's pretty wide open. There's not a lot of stuff. There's not a lot of cities. It's small town, right? It's not overcrowded.
No, and, you know, the thing about here is we do have some of the same dark things. When I was talking to several people about stuff that was going around my house, there is a skinwalker out here. Everyone that has been here for a long time knows it. And it was a curse that was put on a particular property. Now, I've been a real estate broker for a long time too, and I've looked up records of that property, and it's been sold 70 times.
Your property?
Not mine, but the property near here. No one wants to live there.
Wow,
it's like, gee, I wonder why. So me being me, I go out there in the middle of the night and I do some clearing things and some tobacco offerings, and, you know, let's calm this down. And, you know, that's kind of the stuff I do. But with my own property, it took, you know, a pastor, it took a shaman, and it took a couple of local native people to clear, finally, my house. And that was because of something that someone else brought in. And I can't really say who that somebody was, but they know who they were. And they brought it into my house. So that was really, really touchy. And I knew, I'm very sensitive, and I felt it the minute it crossed my threshold. I felt it. And because that person was still here, it took a while for me to get that out. But yeah, it's amazing. People don't realize the reality of things like curses and hexes and thought forms and all of these things that have been a part of my life forever. When you are gifted enough to see them, I think we have a responsibility to try and move it away. Whether you take the thing of moving it, transitioning it, banishing it, whatever you decide needs to be done. I think if we are given the gift of seeing them and knowing they're around, we should have the responsibility of fixing the situation. There's a lot of innocent people that get hurt.
I agree with that. It's kind of come to the point here, though, where let's say, for instance, there are still a lot of children. We've always had children, and then there's just a lot of different spirits that they've Becky from the Tucson Ghost Society has come out. She's the only one I've actually allowed to come out in video and come out and document evidence. And there are so many spirits here that are just like normal people, like walking around outside. It's kind of like, some of them I see, some of them I don't. But it's, it's kind of like, I believe that we have here, and you might have this at your house area too. We have definitely a series of portals every, and it's like I think you can see me, but crossroads, like where they come, walk, because I've seen them literally just walking. I've seen 2 layers of walking people through the bedroom. I haven't seen them in a couple of years, but they would walk right through, like 6 feet over me, and then another 3 feet above that. So there are 2 different ones. So I know that we have this sort of it's almost like a bus station here for
Grand Central,
interesting. So it becomes interesting if you came here to see what you see. But as long as I feel like we have it under control and we're not being affected like we were over a year ago, then we're good. So how do you feel about that? Because you are in a place where the Native American spirits and the animal spirits and all of those are there with you.
Yeah, I have an interesting animal spirit story I'll tell you really quickly. Because of animal rescue, they appear. I don't know where they come from sometimes. They appear, they find me. And I had, for many years, seen a white cat. And I'm like, I don't have a white cat. And then I realized I could kind of see through the cat. And I'm like, okay, it's a spirit cat. And one day I was feeding horses, and this cat was on the fence post. And I saw it, and I went, hello, kitty, kitty, kitty. And it cocked its head, and it disappeared. And about 3 weeks later, somebody brought me a half-dead white kitten that they had found in a field. And I looked at this kitten, and I went, oh, hi, it's you. And I still have that cat, and it's been many years. He's lost a tail, lost part of it. He's had his battle wounds, but he's still here. So that does happen. They pick you. Yeah. I firmly believe they pick you. It's amazing. The spirit there is a maybe 10, 12-year-old spirit Apache boy, and he will walk around and he'll watch me, and he tries to talk to me, but I can't hear him. So he just waves, and I wave. And, if anybody was driving down the road, they'd see me waving at nothing and think, wow, that woman's really nuts now. But he's good. And if they are benevolent, I have no problem with them, being here. It's the ones, I have had 2 come up to me and ask me to open the door so they could cross over.
Okay.
But I am not, if they're not causing any harm and they're just like waving to me, I'm not going to try and force anything because I don't want that karma. If they ask me for my help, I will help them because I was gifted with that ability.
I just love this. I feel this is great. And it's really neat because a lot of people are not like me where they actually see.
Right.
So that is I know there's lots of people out there, but not a lot that I actually know.
Right.
First, know they're out there. But the other thing was the animal spirits, and I believe it's because of my connection with the animals, like you. That was my very first spirit. I saw spirits when I was a kid, but I think through trauma, sexual abuse as a child, that was another thing I had to go through. But then I stopped having pretty much any type of sight until the car accidents that I had, those 2 back-to-back near-death car accidents. And that's what started me on my new journey with spirit. But it was the animal spirits that I saw first, and that was a white horse. So that's like my spirit horse, I think, is the white horse, but that was my first one. So and from then on it just became easy for me. That's part of the deal, is the animal spirits, very, very cool. So I love that that's like what you are.
Yeah, and I've had 2 near-death experiences where one of them they called a time, and I'm like, whoa, hang on, coming back now. But I died on an operating table twice, and it was, everyone, you go through the light. Okay, yeah, there's a light, there's a channel. Yep. My person in the center, everyone says, it's a God, it's a being. It was my great grandmother, and I'm like, wait a minute, you are not God. And she laughed and she says, the experience is different for everyone. It's not your time yet. And she put her hands on my forehead and I was awake. And it was the weirdest thing, but both times it was my great grandmother. I'm like, well, this must say something.
Dear Truckin' Awesome. What do you think of when someone says tough? Honestly, I think of a Toyota truck. Tundra's one mean mother of a truck with a twin-turbo V6 and incredible going power, and the Tacoma claws through terrain with a taller suspension and lots of creature comforts in the cockpit. Both Toyota trucks are decked out with tons of cool features and tech you'll dig. Check them out at Toyota.com, folks. Toyota. Let's go places.
Imagine if in last week's game the pitcher hit the strike zone 30% more. Or the pinch hitter made 30% more contact with the ball. Might have changed the outcome, huh? Now imagine you just saved up to 30% on your car insurance for driving safe with the USAA Safe Pilot app. That's definitely a game changer. Visit USAA.com/SafePilot to start saving. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. United Services Automobile Association Safe Pilot is optional. Active USAA auto policy required for discount. Only in select states. Smartphone and download of Safe Pilot app required. Earned driving discount offered at renewal and based on all rated drivers on policy. Discount may vary by state or life of policy. United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
And I've talked to many people about it, and I find it's not that uncommon when you're not really dead, when you're not really crossing over, for it to be someone you know.
Wow. It wasn't your time. Wow.
It wasn't my time, And I said, okay, that's 2 strikes. I guess the third one will be it, right? And my guides talk to me like all the time. And I would hear laughter when I would say that. They're like, it's an interesting life I live.
Wow, I love that. And it's like twice too for you and for me. So I want to take a little bit of a break here just for a second and talk about some of the other shows that the WEBB Radio Network has. One of them is, and I really like this show, is the Family Spirit in Fox Paranormal. And I hope everybody will take a listen to those 2. There's plenty more there on the Wiregrass Entertainment broadcast. And if, you can always look it up on WEBB Radio Network or the Wiregrass Entertainment broadcast to find all the different shows that they have on there. And you know what, Kelly, these shows, there's so many great ones. There's people that are, until I got on this network, I didn't actually know, I just kind of I just didn't know them. But when I started to research them, I'm like, wow, these people are amazing. There's the Fox Paranormal is a whole family, and actually one of the daughters or one of the people of the Fox Paranormal show is as part of the Family Spirit international show. So it's like this family has a lot going on, and they're pretty amazing. If you haven't looked them up. Another sponsor I wanted to thank is Caveman Fabrications. So everybody that's listening, give a listen or give a look out for cavemanfabrications.com. Fabulous artist, Joseph Benedict.
For the full interview with Kellie Fitzgerald, please head over to WEBB Radio Network, and the Mercedes Lucke-Benedict Show will be streaming it live on Spreaker. Thank you. Be sure to share. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show, streaming live on Spreaker and the WEBB Radio Network. This is the Mercedes Lucke-Benedict Show. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube. Please enjoy my music.
Every time that I've ever been knocked down, every time that I've ever gotten back up to face another round, I let go of my fear and put my pride down. I'm building my castle in heaven, climbing over mountains with the lessons I've been given. I'm building my castle in heaven. My castle is not made of mortar or stone. My castle is made from the seeds that I've sown. I'm building castles in heaven. Every challenge, every mistake, every time that I choose faith, I grow strong. I keep moving on and on and on. And I'm building my castle in heaven. I'm climbing over mountains of lessons I've been given. I'm building my castle in heaven. My castle is not made of mortar or stone. My castle is made from the seeds that I've sown. I'm building castles in heaven. Every moment, every day, every word that you say, every step along your way, every time that you make a mistake. Every good deed that you do, each time that you win, each time that you lose, each time that you walk in another's shoes. On this earth where we grow strong, when we learn to forgive and we right our wrongs.